Hi everybody, Rob Keys here with a quick review of Daredevil Season 2, which is now on Netflix. It released about a week ago and I binged through it hardcore that first day. I'm sure you did too if you're watching this. But I managed to see the first 7 episodes a little early because I did an interview with Charlie Cox and he talks about what he wants to see next season. So if you're interested in seeing more, which I'm sure you are, head to screenrant.com and just Google that. This season, I really enjoyed watching it. I did feel that toward the end, I felt like a bit of a chore in that I was ready for it to end. And I'll get to that specifically why in a second. But this season was a bit of a step down from season 1. And I know perhaps that's a little bit inevitable because we've already met the character. We've seen this style of action in this world and this version of the origin story. And we've already accepted and been impressed by that. But I don't think that's what was an issue for me. 2 things. One, the characters, new and returning, were a little less relatable in that I couldn't really get behind some of their decision making. And I felt it was very grounded in that respect in the first season. And the other part of it is I felt like the handling of the different plot lines and the new character introductions were a little too jarring. And the big question and what the big topic for this season is are, of course, like the introduction of Frank Castle, a.k.a. the Punisher, and Elektra Nachos. And Marvel killing it again on casting. John Bernthal, perfect as Castle, and Elodie Young plays an amazing Elektra with a very different origin story. But I think it works. A lot of people are complaining about that, and there's an article on Screen Rant which kind of dissects it a little bit. But for me, it worked. That wasn't my issue, was her origin. My issue is how they handle introduction. So the first 4 episodes are all about the Punisher, and you're like, oh yeah, it's Daredevil versus the Punisher. Cool. They're really humanizing him. We're seeing how this can be a whole new style of origin, a much more relatable origin story for the character. And that sort of wraps up at the end of episode 4. And then boom, Elektra's there all of a sudden. And then they're exploring how she already has a past with Matt Murdock. And it's not as interesting or as cool or as fun to watch as the Punisher stuff. You kind of always want Punisher to come back. And then that takes a few episodes to kind of gear up as other things are happening in the background. And just as Elektra starts to get really cool and interesting as they really explain her greater role, perhaps, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and her history and how it ties to Stick and Matt. Just as that gets interesting, you're kind of pulled back into the Punisher stuff again. You're like, oh man, now Punisher is going to come out full force like we know him from the comics. But no, Marvel very intentionally, I believe, holds him back because it's so clear that they're setting him up for his own show that you don't see full-on Punisher as you would expect, especially in the kind of climactic battles at the end of the season when you really wanted to see him come back. It's very disconnected. It's a very entirely disconnected story from the Elektra and Matt stuff. And Elektra takes all of Matt's focus and time, and it starts to make him make decisions that I don't think Matt Murdock would do. Like, it leaves his friends hanging. Foggy becomes a far less likable character and whines too much, and I don't understand what he's complaining about. And Karen Page gets kind of sidetracked with her own sort of story. If anything, even though I wasn't on board and kind of loving what all the characters were doing, it does, by the end of this series, or the season, set them up in very interesting positions for next season. All the characters are placed in very neat places, and I'm very excited to see them come back for season 3. And there's some very cool cameos in this one. And what Marvel did very well again this season, just like they did with Jessica Jones and Daredevil season 1, is they include very important, recognizable, fun for the fans connections to other Marvel things without ever sort of without ever relying on that or being pulled in that direction. I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't seen it, but there's some very cool cameos and some familiar faces, which is great to see, even though they're just little bits maybe for some fans, but I really do appreciate that. The one thing though, in terms of connectivity, which may hold the season back is there's a supernatural element which comes in the back half of the season, and it really seems to be setting up this supernatural war between the Chaste and the Hand, which is ties into the background of Stick, Elektra, and Daredevil, and what's his face, the Hand guy from the first season, Nobu, I think is his name. It sort of explains a little bit of that, but leaves like massive plot holes, and in one case, a literal hole. You'll know what I mean when you see the season, and I feel like that's setting up. If not Iron Fist, it's definitely setting up an element of what the Defenders may be forced to come together to tackle. But it's very unclear and unfocused, and because of that, it's uninteresting. And the same goes with the Hand. We finally get to see the Hand ninjas come in full force, but they don't seem to be very effective at what they're doing. And their battles with Matt and Elektra are not grounded in that. There's no stakes for the people of Hell's Kitchen, so they're battle seems to be personal with them and not really about saving the people of New York. So it becomes, it makes what they're doing and all those fights a little less interesting because there's no stakes. I mean, the people of Hell's Kitchen aren't in jeopardy. Daredevil's going to get out fine. So that was a little bit of that's, I think, why the last 3 episodes I was kind of like just going through the motions to see it conclude because I know something else is coming. So that's a little unfortunate, but don't let that hold you back. If you have any interest in Marvel TV and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you love the Daredevil comics, you love season 1, obviously it's a must watch. You won't be sorry. It's some great stuff, great actors. Yeah, and I think that's about it. So if you have seen Daredevil season 2, don't spoil it just yet. Give it a couple of weeks so everyone can kind of catch up. There's a lot going on with Batman v Superman in theaters now. But if you have, share your thoughts and comments on my review and what you thought of the show and what you want to see next. Because I think there's some very cool stuff coming. Luke Cage already has a release date, premiere date, I should say, for September. And Iron Fist is going to be entering production in the near future. Finn Jones is playing Danny Rand. I helped break that story on Screen Rant. I'm very happy about that too. So, oh man, and big props, Charlie Cox. I am so in love with this dude. That guy, more than any other TV superhero character, no matter the universe, deserves to be in with the Avengers. That Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock is the greatest thing on TV. He's so brilliant and can command and steal a screen in any scene without even dialogue, without even moving. The guy is so talented, and on top of that, he's fun and awesome and witty as a person on and off screen, and he rocks that costume and kicks so much ass. Awesome. I hope there's 10 seasons of Daredevil, and hope he's in every friggin' Avengers movie, including Infinity War, going forward. What a great dude to kind of build the Marvel TV Netflix universe around. So yeah, until next time, like and subscribe, and cheers.